Hey guys, Owen here with Seek Outside, and today I want to show you how to build and burn in your standard titanium wood stove. Well, let's get into it. So what we have here is the extra large stove. All of our standard stoves are going to be the exact same process for building and burning in. That goes from the medium stove all the way up to the Big Mama. For U-turn stoves, go ahead and check out the video here. Inside the stove case, you're going to have your stovepipe, your stove damper, and then all the parts and pieces to build up your titanium wood stove. First thing you're going to find up top is going to be your damper. It's going to have a spark arrestor inside that rotates. That helps you clean the spark arrestor when it's in the stove. And then you're also going to have your sliding damper. That's going to go into the slot here on the damper tube. So simply just put that in, and that'll control your airflow out of the pipe. You'll also find that you have 4 stove legs that are going to be matched for the size of your stove. You'll have a hardware kit with feet and wing nuts, as well as all the other essential parts for setting up your stove. Not shown inside is the stovepipe because I have that already built. For learning how to build your stovepipe, check out the video here. Let's get started on building up our stove. First thing you want to do is go ahead and grab one of the legs as well as one of the wing nuts and thread this up. Each one of the legs about 4 or 5 inches. A good way to measure the height that you want to bring this wing nut up to is to take one of the stove sides and just measure the height. So you'll want about 10 millimeters sticking out of the top, and I'll just thread that nut up to that height. For building the box, all of our parts and pieces are going to be stacked right here. It's a very simple process. You're going to have a top, you'll have 2 sides, a front and a back, as well as a bottom. The easiest way I've found to do this is go ahead and take the front and the back and the 2 sides and build that first. You'll see on the front of your stove that you have a male mating edge, while on the sides of your stove you'll have a nice crease in here that's going to be female. That's where the male part is going to go. So just go ahead and slide those together. Might be a tighter fit at first. You can also remove the door as well if it's giving you any troubles. And do the exact same thing for the other side as well. Once you have that assembled, on the back you'll notice there is a longer and a shorter side as well. Use the longer side as the male parts into the female on the sides. And we'll just create a box without a top or bottom. Now that we have our sides, our front, and our back all connected, I like to go ahead and find the bottom. The bottom is not directional. You'll find that there's a tray. That's where you want the stove to sit, but it doesn't matter which way it goes. Sit your box into the bottom of the stove, and then find your top. The top is directional, so the hole for the stovepipe should be located in the back of the stove. That's going to be away from this door here. You can just go ahead and slide that on top as well. Now that the box for your stove is completely built, all we have to do is just slide in the legs, which is a real simple process. I find the easiest way to do this is to put this stove on its side, and you can hold it with your hip or your hand. Slide in the leg from the bottom first. I also like to do this with the door off. The reason for that is because I can see the hole on the other side. Go ahead and take one of your other wing nuts and just simply thread that onto the other top of the leg and cinch it down. No need to do it too tight right now. Now I like to do this in a star pattern, so I'll switch to the back side across from this leg over here. Grab my other leg, thread that through, find the top, take our wing nut, and just go ahead and tighten that down. Just go ahead and do the rest of the stove legs. The stove should be pretty secure now. All of our legs are now attached. Just go ahead and put the stove on its feet. You'll notice there are 4 feet nuts, also known as weld nuts. We can go ahead and attach these now. Thread these on to the bottom to your desired height. I like to go flush with them. These are also an item that you won't need to remove. You can just leave them on there in the future. Now, before we go ahead and start burning this stove in, we want to make sure that our wing nuts are not too tight. I like to back them off, you know, a good half turn, make sure the stove can move around in itself. Because when metal heats up, it expands, and then when it cools, it contracts. And so this allows your stove to kind of mend together by just having it a little bit loose. It's now time to burn in the stove. So unfortunately, I don't have space here at my house where I can set up a shelter. That is the preferred method. But what I do have here is a wire that I've rigged up to hold the stovepipe, similar to a stove jack, and then I have my stove right here. So what we need to do now is connect the damper to the stovepipe, which is a pretty simple process. I like to put the damper on the stovepipe before I put it in the actual stove. Simply just take your pipe ring, slide it up quite a bit. You'll want to make sure the damper gets inside of the stovepipe. What you'll simply do is just slide those stovepipe rings up, and then when you're ready to bring them down and tighten your pipe down again, just slide them back down. They'll get increasingly tighter. Like so. Then we'll go ahead and put the damper into the stove. Just simply sliding it in there, pushing it down. Doesn't need to be super tight. And now it is time to start a fire in our stove. I have my damper open as well as my intake damper open. I want to have these open when I'm starting the fire to have the best heat and circulation, allowing smoke to go out of the pipe and air to be drawn into the stove. I've got this thing stuffed with wood. It's time to let it just get nice and hot. I like to even leave just a little bit of a crack there, just letting that get super warm, letting that fire get really hot. And we're gonna start to see the stove change colors. You can already see it here on the door a little bit. And then you're gonna start to see the pipe change color as well. Right now is a really great time to start to familiarize yourself with the stove and its functions, particularly the intake damper and the outtake damper here. So you can kind of see when you close the damper how the fire slows down, and same thing up here. Just a good time to get a little bit of practice before you use it in the backcountry. Also a great time to test some accessories. Example, I have a glass stove door right here. So I'm just gonna install that so you guys can see the fire as well. Like so. These are all great signs to be looking for. You see how the stove is just completely changing color everywhere. That means that you are getting burned in. You can see the pipe has changed color quite a bit. It's not going to change color all the way up, but that heat is still doing something. So I'd recommend, yeah, just run your fire real nice and hot for about 30 minutes. And then, yeah, you can kind of let that fire die down. All right, as you can see, our fire has been going for about 30 minutes now. A lot of the stove has changed color. The pipe has changed color quite a bit, except for the upper parts. If you really want to burn in the stovepipe all the way, I recommend just flipping the stovepipe over once the stove is cooled, and then just burning the other side real quick. Another 20, 30 minutes will do you. Otherwise, yeah, I'm just gonna let this die down and pack it up. Now that your stove is all burned in, next time you use it, you can tighten down the wing nuts and everything a little bit more tightly. Your stovepipe should roll out really nice and easy. So if you guys have any other questions, just drop them down in the comments below or send us an email, info@seekoutside.com, and we'll be happy to answer them. You guys have an amazing day.